Something extraordinary is happening inside the House of Windsor. Something no one saw coming. Something that will be remembered long after the final chapter of this reign is written. King Charles III is preparing to make history with what may be his last great public act. Not an abdication, not a quiet retirement. Something far more radical. Something that rewrites the very idea of what the crown can be. He is about to place the future of the monarchy into the hands of Catherine. Yes, you heard that correctly. The woman the world once knew as Kate Middleton. The Princess of Wales. The future Queen Consort. The quiet force who has carried the institution through scandal, illness, and public scrutiny with a grace that has left even her harshest critics speechless. And now, King Charles is preparing to crown her not just as a consort, but as the crown's new leader. This is not ceremony. This is succession by design. For months, the whispers have grown louder inside Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace alike. Charles's health battles are no longer a private matter whispered behind closed doors. They are a public reality. The king who waited longer than any heir in history to wear the crown is now facing the question every monarch eventually confronts. What comes after me, and how do I protect what I leave behind? Most expected the answer to be simple. William, the heir, the future, the safe choice. But Charles has never been a man of safe choices. Those closest to the king say he has spent long nights studying the history of the monarchy not as a list of triumphs, but as a warning. He has watched empires crumble when the center failed to hold. He has seen public affection turn to indifference when the face of the institution no longer felt relevant. And he has looked at his own son, steady, dutiful, beloved, and still seen a gap only one person can fill. Catherine, not as a figurehead, not as a supportive wife standing 3 steps behind. As a living embodiment of what the crown must become if it is to survive the next 50 years. Think about what she has already done. When the late Queen died, it was Catherine who helped steady the family in public view. When the Sussex drama threatened to tear the institution apart, it was Catherine who refused to take the bait, who kept working, who kept smiling for the cameras while the world speculated about her private pain. When her own cancer diagnosis became public, the outpouring of global affection was unlike anything seen for a modern royal. People did not just feel sympathy. They felt loyalty. Personal, emotional, almost protective loyalty. Charles has watched that loyalty grow. He has measured it, and he has reached a conclusion that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. The monarchy cannot be carried by bloodline alone anymore. It must be carried by presence, by trust, by the quiet power of a woman who has never needed the crown to command a room, and yet somehow makes the crown feel more human when she wears its expectations. Sources close to the king describe a series of private conversations that took place earlier this year. Conversations in which Charles spoke not of tradition, but of adaptation. He is said to have told a trusted aide, "The crown must not look like the past if it wants to have a future. And the future already has a face. That face is Catherine's. What exactly does crowning her as a crown's new leader mean in practice? It is not a formal title that appears in any constitutional textbook. There is no official position called leader of the crown. But power inside the monarchy has always been exercised in the spaces between the lines of the law. Influence, visibility, control of the narrative, the ability to set the emotional temperature of the entire institution. Charles is preparing to hand Catherine that influence in a way no consort has ever held it. Insiders say the king intends to use a major public occasion, possibly tied to a significant anniversary or a carefully chosen state moment, to make a statement that will be impossible to misinterpret. He will speak of continuity, of renewal, and of the unique role Catherine now occupies. He will elevate her public standing beyond that of any previous Princess of Wales. He will signal, in language both poetic and precise, that she is not waiting in the wings. She is already leading. Some will call it radical. Others will call it necessary. The traditionalists are already uneasy. They see William as a rightful path and worry that elevating Catherine so dramatically risks creating dual centers of gravity. They whisper about precedent, about what happens when the public begins to look past the heir to the consort, about the danger of rewriting roles that have remained largely unchanged for centuries. But Charles, according to those who have sat with him in recent months, is no longer interested in protecting the old map. He is interested in making sure there is still a kingdom left to map. He has watched the younger generation's relationship with the monarchy shift. He has seen how quickly affection can turn to detachment when the institution feels distant, male, and ceremonial. And he has noticed something else. When Catherine appears, the temperature changes. Crowds soften. Cameras linger. Criticism grows quieter. She does not demand loyalty. She earns it in real time. That is a currency the modern crown cannot survive without. There is another layer to this decision, one that cuts deeper than strategy. Charles has always understood the weight of the crown better than most. He wore it as a burden long before he wore it as a reality. He knows what it does to a person. He knows what it did to his mother. He knows what it almost did to him. And he has looked at his daughter-in-law, this woman who entered the family as an outsider and has become its most trusted public face, and decided that the next chapter requires a different kind of strength. Not the strength of inheritance, the strength of endurance, of quiet competence, of emotional intelligence under pressure. In private, Charles is said to refer to Catherine as the one who already carries it. Not the title, the responsibility, the expectation, the gaze of the world. By elevating her now, while he still has the authority and the public platform to do so, he is attempting something no modern monarch has dared, to shape the emotional succession before the formal one arrives. William, of course, remains the heir. Nothing in this plan changes the line of succession. But power inside a living monarchy is never only about the line. It is about who the public trusts to embody the institution when the cameras are rolling and the crises are unfolding. Charles is betting that trust already lives with Catherine, and that the smartest thing a king can do is recognize it before the moment of crisis forces a recognition. This is not a fairy tale. It is a calculation, a historic one. And if the reports are accurate, we are about to witness the moment when that calculation becomes public. King Charles is preparing to make his last great public act not about himself, but about the woman he believes can carry the crown into a future that no longer looks like the past. The question is no longer whether he will do it. The question is how the world will react when he does. Because once Catherine is publicly positioned as the crown's new leader, once the king himself places that mantle on her shoulders, nothing about the monarchy will feel quite the same again. The old order is ending, not with a bang, not with an abdication, but with a deliberate, historic transfer of moral authority. And at the center of it stands a woman who never asked to lead, and yet may be the only one who can. The story is only beginning, and what comes next may redefine the British monarchy for a generation. If the reports circulating among those closest to the king are accurate, the moment itself will not look like a traditional coronation. There will be no anointing oil, no ancient regalia placed upon Catherine's head, no formal oath that alters a line of succession. William remains the heir. George remains next. The constitutional structure stays intact. But the emotional architecture of the crown is about to shift. King Charles is preparing a public act designed to do something far more powerful than rewriting a legal document. He intends to rewrite perception. Sources familiar with the discussions describe a carefully staged occasion, possibly a major national anniversary, a Commonwealth gathering, or a specially convened palace event, where the king will speak not merely of Catherine's support, but of her leadership. He will use language that elevates a role beyond consort, beyond future queen, into something closer to co-architect of the institution's future. He will frame her as a steady center around which the next chapter must turn. In private, the phrasing being considered is said to be deliberate and irreversible, that Catherine already embodies the values a monarchy must carry forward: resilience, quiet strength, emotional intelligence, and an instinctive connection with the public that cannot be taught. Once those words are spoken by the reigning sovereign, they cannot be unspoken. This is the part that has traditionalists most unsettled. For centuries, the role of the consort has been carefully contained. Support, soften, humanize, never lead, never outshine, never become the primary face of continuity while the heir still waits. Charles is preparing to break that mold in public. Those who have spoken with him in recent months say he no longer views a monarchy as a rigid hierarchy of blood and birth order alone. He sees it as a living brand of trust. And in the currency of trust, Catherine currently holds more public capital than almost anyone else in the family. Her cancer journey did not diminish her standing. It amplified it. The global response was not polite sympathy. It was visceral. People felt protective of her. They projected their own fears and hopes onto her recovery. When she returned to public life, the affection had deepened into something closer to attachment. Charles has measured that attachment. He understands its political value better than most. A monarchy that feels distant dies slowly. A monarchy that feels personally defended by the public becomes remarkably hard to dismantle. By elevating Catherine now, he is attempting to lock in that defensive loyalty while he still has a platform to do it. What does this mean for William? This is the question that hangs over every private conversation inside the palace. William is not being displaced. No one is suggesting he step aside. But the optics of his father publicly positioning his wife as the emotional leader of the crown create a delicate new dynamic. Some close to the Prince of Wales worry about the long-term consequences of dual centers of gravity. Others argue the opposite, that Catherine's elevation actually strengthens William's eventual reign by ensuring the public already trust the woman standing beside him. Insiders say William himself has been briefed. The conversations have been careful, respectful, and occasionally tense. He understands the strategic logic. He also understands the risk of the public beginning to look past him toward the more immediately magnetic presence of his wife. Catherine, characteristically, has remained almost silent on the matter in private. Those who know her say she has never sought this kind of formal elevation. She has always preferred influence without the spotlight's full heat. Yet she also understands duty in its most unsentimental form. If the king believes this is what the institution requires, she will carry it. That quiet acceptance may be the most powerful part of the entire story. There is historical precedent for strong consorts shaping the tone of a reign, of course. Prince Albert's influence over Victoria was profound. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, helped steady the monarchy after the abdication crisis. But none of those cases involved a reigning king deliberately transferring moral authority to a daughter-in-law while still on the throne, with the explicit goal of modernizing the institution's public face. This is new. And novelty, inside an institution built on continuity, always carries danger. Critics are already preparing their arguments. They will say Charles is acting from personal affection rather than institutional wisdom. They will claim he is romanticizing Catherine's popularity at the expense of clear lines of authority. They will warn that once the public begins to see the consort as a true leader, the formal heir risks becoming a secondary figure, respected, but no longer the primary emotional focus. Supporters will counter that the alternative is worse, a monarchy that continues to look and feel like a closed male hierarchy in an age that no longer tolerates it. They will point to declining engagement among younger generations and argue that Catherine represents the single most effective bridge the institution currently possesses. Both sides will have evidence. Both sides will speak with certainty. The truth, as usual, will be more complicated. What makes this moment different is the timing. Charles is not a young king experimenting with reform. He is a man acutely aware of mortality, of legacy, and of the limited window remaining to shape what comes after him. Every public appearance now carries the weight of potential finality. Every decision risks being read as a last testament. By choosing to elevate Catherine in this way, he is making a statement about what he believes a monarchy needs most in the years ahead. Not more grandeur, not more distance, not more rigid adherence to roles written in another century, but a figure who can make the crown feel necessary again to ordinary people. Catherine has already proven she can do that. She does it without speeches about relevance. She does it by showing up, by listening longer than expected, by absorbing pressure without performing victimhood, and by maintaining an almost unnatural consistency of dignity when the world around her fractures. Charles has watched that consistency for over a decade. He has decided it is the rarest resource the family possesses. If the planned public act goes ahead, the immediate reaction will be seismic. Headlines will explode. Royal commentators will fill airtime for days. Social media will divide into camps. Those who celebrate the recognition of a woman who has earned her place through endurance, and those who see institutional overreach or dangerous precedent. Inside the palace, the temperature will rise. Every future appearance by Catherine will be scrutinized for signs of expanded authority. Every joint engagement with William will be analyzed for subtle shifts in body language and positioning. The narrative will no longer be the future king and his wife. It will become something more complex. The future king and the woman the previous king publicly designated as the crown's living center. That complexity is exactly what Charles appears willing to risk. Because the alternative, allowing the monarchy to drift into polite irrelevance while clinging to outdated hierarchies, is, in his view, the greater danger. There's a final layer to this story that rarely gets spoken aloud. Charles has spent a lifetime being told he must wait. Wait for the crown. Wait for relevance. Wait for the moment when his ideas would finally matter. He waited longer than any heir in modern history. And when the moment finally came, it arrived shadowed by illness and the knowledge that time was no longer infinite. In elevating Catherine, he may be doing more than securing the institution. He may be attempting to ensure that the qualities he most admires, steadiness under fire, emotional intelligence, the ability to make duty look like grace, are not left a chance in the next generation. He is trying to right the emotional will of the monarchy while he still holds a pen. Whether that act will be remembered as visionary or reckless will depend on what follows. If Catherine continues to carry public affection while supporting William's eventual reign, history may record Charles's decision as the shrewdest adaptation the modern crown has made. If the elevation creates lasting tension or dilutes the clear line of authority, critics will say a dying king allowed sentiment to override structure. Either way, the act itself will stand. A king, facing the limits of his own chapter, choosing to place the moral weight of the crown onto the shoulders of a woman who never sought it, yet has never dropped it when it was given. King Charles is preparing to make history with what may be his last great public act, not by clinging to power, but by deliberately transferring the one kind of authority no constitution can grant and no rival can easily take away, the authority of public trust. And at the center of that transfer stands Catherine, no longer merely the future queen, but the woman the king himself has chosen to mark as the crown's new leader. The old order is not being destroyed. It is being rewritten, in real time, by a sovereign who has decided that survival requires more than bloodline. It requires the right face. And right now, that face is hers. History is not always made by those who take the crown. Sometimes it is made by those who decide who must carry it next.